you ever think about how magical yet mundane life can be? I remember what life felt like before we had the internet in our pocket. Growing up, I used to go to and from England to Iran to visit my family. And looking back, my memories of Iran feel like a past life. I remember the nostalgic beauty of the place, not just of the natural scenery, but the smell of the trees along the roads in the evening, crystal clear stars in the sky over the backdrop of the mountain, and the horizon, and the warm feeling of family, culture, and belonging. The world, including the UK, felt a lot quieter back then. People seemed more present with their immediate surroundings, more grateful for what they had, who they were, not exposed to the constant reminders of what they could have and who they could be. You had your family and friends, a small handful of career paths to choose from, and you felt content. But growing up in school in sunny Manchester, the reality set in of studying hard to eventually find your place in society. But being from another culture made it hard for me to fit in completely, as I couldn't fully identify with any one nationality. Though my friends were mostly other sons of immigrants, most of which were Muslim. I'm not religious, but I like that religious people see the world the way it really is, magical, miraculous, and filled with purpose. This perspective always felt like a stark contrast to the boring reality of life at school, where I found it difficult to stay interested in any one field. Besides, there were just so many separate subjects about which you just had to memorize so much information on, and I just didn't see the point. I think it's because I saw how my dad, a very entrepreneurial character, successfully carved out his own path in life, outside of a single traditional job or system. And actually, my dad seemed to have that same conviction that religious people had, but for his family. And his automotive business, Merdad Collection, my dad seemed to get genuine meaning out of his work. He was creating real life, beautiful things, supercars even, and he was good at it. He was a self-starter. No one told him what to do. He just knew what he needed to do. You know, this kind of people. He always seemed to be in this flow of certainty. So I knew that that's the kind of deep conviction I wanted in myself. I wanted one day to have that clarity on my path, to find my thing and not feel like I'm missing out on some other thing. I wanted to be enthusiastic about life and live with a recognition of its beauty, and especially with my career. I wanted to work towards clear vision with a good team and create beautiful things together. And although I didn't believe in the traditional education path, my dad actually was the one who convinced me that a university degree wouldn't hurt to help me gain more opportunities long term. So I decided to study business and marketing at the University of Northampton, namely because the Merdad Collection showroom was nearby. And the plan was to continue to help run the business while learning the relevant theoretical skills in the meantime. And eventually, working with my dad in the showroom prepared me for the world of business just as much as my university degree. I saw how he operated from this passionate, intuitive knowing of process, product, and people. He actually made a one-man business look like a corporation on the outside. I actually remember overhearing a call where a supplier said to him, "Merdad," that's his name, "Merdad, we're not a big company like you. We only have about 85 people working for us." And it was funny because it was literally just me and my dad, and that's it. And I think he really made the most out of his resources because he focused on one single-minded vision. And that was to make the most beautiful Porsche SUV on the market. Everything else was secondary because he believed that the car would speak for itself. So when customers would ask him detailed questions and technical questions, he would tell them, "Please stop asking these boring questions. Just look at the damn thing. That's all you need to know." Because inevitably he knew that while people bought the product, on a deeper level, they were really buying into the style of the brand, but behind the brand was him, his character. That's why I found myself more interested in the more psychology-focused modules at university. And the enthusiasm of my marketing professors helped fuel this, particularly around lectures around consumer behavior. They taught how as consumers, our more tribal instincts are manipulated to get us to desire brands and to buy things we inevitably don't need. So this is where I learned about conspicuous consumption and the unnecessary harm that all this does to our planet, which was a real turning point for me. So I chose this as my thesis topic and ended up graduating with a first-class degree, which, thanks to the experience of my dad and the guidance from my lecturers, gave me confidence on my interests and my appreciation for academia in general. which was enough to make me decide to further my studies with a master's in environmental technology at Imperial College London. So my idea naively was to utilize what I learned in marketing, but to promote positive, environmentally responsible behavior. This would be a stark contrast to the gas-guzzling car sales I used to do with my dad. I had to be honest with myself about doing work that I believed in, something I felt similarly passionate about. So at Imperial, I specialized in pollution management and wrote my thesis on making carbon negative cars with hemp cannabis fibers. And then I got a job at Tesla, which is where my journey really started. It was where Tesla first just entered the UK market, so they were focused just on sales. And then my claim to fame was getting an email response from Elon Musk about a SpaceX related marketing project. And then when word got round, I was invited to give a TEDx talk basically about business in space. I spoke about how businesses like Tesla strive to seek objective truth about our place in the market and our competencies to work towards a vision or goal. But we don't do this in our personal lives. We forget that objectively, with this magical consciousness, literally, on this floating ball called planet Earth, hurtling through the galaxy, which is a shame because if we were aware of that, then we'd make decisions more in line with the magic of existence and live a more meaningful life. By the way, this whole time I've been figuring out my own religious and philosophical beliefs, which I've now brought together and summarized in the form of a fiction story in my book. But while I was a student, I visited some very proficient shamans who were able to show me through a very intense ceremony the experience that the concept of the soul and God are actually very real. Long story short, it was a real experience. So this inspired me for the TEDx talk to do a guided meditation on stage. So I helped the audience visualize themselves floating above the planet as astronauts do, as a sort of cosmic reminder to see life the way it really is and realign their values. And we're going to do that today. I'm just kidding, I wouldn't do that to you. So taking my own advice, I went deeper into sustainability in my career, becoming a climate change specialist at an environmental consulting company. But it wasn't long until my entrepreneurial aspirations caught up with me. I still had this desire to create something, and I was still in touch with old customers from Tesla who were founders, and I used to help out their startups for free just to gain experience. One of them was a climate risk analytics startup that actually I ended up leaving my secure consulting job to work for free. And people around me thought I was going crazy, but I just knew it would be worth the experience. And then I started to work in organic fruit and veg shop just to pay the bills while I was helping startups. And as I was stacking the shelves, that's when I realized that all the work I've been doing for these companies actually ties really closely to a job title called product management. So I then started interviewing for full-time roles specifically in product management, and which I realized was a natural fit for me, probably because it was in that creative sweet spot of building and designing processes and products and working with people. My most memorable interview experience was with the European Space Agency from an application I'd forgotten about for months. I'd got through to the 5th and final round of interviews before being told I was number 2 out of thousands of applications. So that was a bittersweet rejection, but a hopeful moment, which I had lots of time to process whilst I was mopping the floor at the fruit shop the next morning. I still persevered, and eventually I did get a job at the British Geospatial Agency's innovation branch, and was soon building mapping products with actual ambassadors from the UK and the European Space Agency. So this was like the government's stamp of approval of my role as a product manager. But believe it or not, I then left this dream job after a year to finish writing my book, because by that time I was confident in my ability to interview and present myself well, even making a digital portfolio website showcasing all my work and my value and articulating my story in a synergistic and efficient way. So this is something I think everyone should do, by the way. You create and point to a place where your work speaks for itself, but I'll get to that in the end. So I soon got a job offer to build a carbon emissions calculator for the global innovation team at the world's largest media investment agency called GroupM. So to this day, it's actually the most widely used carbon calculator in the industry, which I'm quite proud of. But guess what? This whole time, I felt like an imposter, because although I had all this experience of my own sort of tech startup, which I'll get into in a minute, I actually had no traditional degree in product management, what I do, because kind of there isn't one. So I thought I would get humbled every time I would start a new company. But it turns out everyone was also trying to figure out this whole product management thing. And there was no formal process of building product. I actually created and documented my own 100-page instruction manual to do my job. It's a distilled guide that's like inspired by best practices I've worked from, learned from other companies, as well as other resources that I've put in one place. So I call it the product innovation process, and it's been used by startups, SMEs, and large corporates to build products without me actually being there. It hasn't actually been used at the company I'm working at now though, because they already have a good process. They already know what they're doing. So now I work at a company called VivUp, which provides health and well-being benefits to organizations for their employees. They're an incredible company to work for, and we're actually voted the #1 SME to work for in the UK last year. Check them out before you graduate. They're a really good employer. Where was I? Yeah, I essentially make products that through different means help people feel recognized at work and get better access to things like healthcare, and even save massively on things like their childcare costs. This, I think, ironically, does more good for the world than working in sustainability does, partly because I found the sustainability industry a bit pretentious and full of greenwashing. All these companies trying to pretend to do something to protect their image, and globalists trying to carbon tax you and gain more control of your life. Just know that if atomic energy isn't a major part of the picture, which is the only real solution, then all this talk of sustainability is a bit disingenuous. I just want to say, by the way, the opinions I suggest do not reflect the opinions of my employer. They actually have some great sustainability policies and are leading the UK's cycle to work scheme. I just think that the most meaningful value you can actually create through your career or personal projects is contributing to that which directly helps people reduce their stress. Now, why is that? The answer to the question is found in all sects of spirituality, religion, philosophy, which is what I spent years summarizing in my book, which is basically the underlying conclusion that every wisdom agrees on about the meaning of life, is that the meaning of life is to connect to a transcendent capacity, either within yourself, others, or the world around you. The religion says it's a connection with God, aligning with the will of the Creator. Spirituality says it's a connection to your spirit or soul. And philosophy is a connection with more objective, deeper morals or values. Basically your conscience, right? But essentially when you, as a human, reduce stress, another way of putting it is overcoming your emotions, or even trauma, what's left is the real you. There's less noise in the way between you and the connection with yourself, with your inner voice, your true spirit that knows who you are, that knows what you find important, and therefore has great clarity and conviction in knowing what you want to do. That's why it's said that the devil makes the world so noisy that men and women can't even hear themselves, because the devil knows that the closest you'll ever get to feeling content is by connecting with your spirit, because your spirit is that which holds the qualities of what makes you you, what you find important, and therefore your sense of meaning and purpose. And the reason why this wisdom is so important in our professional life is because whether you're an employee or professional, creative, working on a company or project or product, the most important skill is to be able to overcome information, which is actually the best way to reduce stress. So that could even mean not scrolling too much on your phone or meditating in space. And for a business, it's knowing what data or insights are useful to you, or having a single source of truth or agreed upon process. Because when you cut through the noise, you're able to focus on these three essential things: your true or core nature or values or competencies, where that then puts you in your place in existence, either in the universe or in the market. And then 3, what therefore your vision or purpose should be that you can use to guide your decision. So those 3 things. Focusing on these 3 things has always been at the heart of anything valuable I've ever worked on. And it's also how I've ever been able to get into that state of clarity and conviction, mainly by knowing what to do based on how much closer you're getting to where you want to be, and therefore seeing the beauty of the more mundane, boring work. But you have to define it first. It sounds really cliche, but you'd be surprised how little this gets done. Another reason why that's so important is because just because you know you have to do something, it doesn't mean it's going to be fun, right? Because guess what? Even though I have the career and project I've always wanted, it doesn't mean that I spring out of bed every morning and enjoy every minute of it. It's still a job. You get paid to do it because nobody would do it for free. A lot of the time it's really boring and it's really difficult and complex and it was work. Even if you run a supercar business like my dad did, we still did taxes. There was still admin. There was still a lot of cleaning the cars, just like in Tesla, getting them ready for customers, lots of paperwork. Unfortunately, that's just how life is. I remember one night, my dad and I were stripping the paint off a vintage car. And I said, Dad, I've been sanding this metal piece non-stop for a whole week. And all I've done is this one panel. And he said, yes, so what? Keep going. I said, what do you mean? How can you keep going? This is so boring. He said, son, just think about the end result. And he carried on sanding away. And I thought it was interesting because we hear all this advice about enjoying the process, but I think that's just like bullshit YouTube guru advice. It's funny because before this talk, this morning I asked him, I said, Dad, what did you mean when you said, just think about the end result? Was it the end result of seeing the beautiful car come to life? And he said, what are you talking about? I was looking forward to finishing the car so I could sell the damn thing. I wanted to get rid of it so I could get the money. So you could say that even my dad got bored of cars or his passion in the end. For a very long time, he didn't do it because he loved cars. There's only so much dopamine you can possibly get from the same thing all the time. In reality, I realized the thing that kept him going was the ability to provide for his family. And really, I think the best way to turn a potentially boring existence into something beautiful is to see how your mundane tasks are getting you closer to a more magical vision or goal of where you want to be. And yeah, sometimes those mundane tasks include working for free for a while, like I did, to get experience. That's not fun. That's why it's important to have not just a vision for your 9-to-5 job, but also something that you personally want to create for yourself, something you're personally passionate about, so you can use the earnings eventually from your real life job to fuel your fantasy dream, basically what I do. And that dream could just be being able to take care of those who you love. I call this the middle way approach to your personal and professional life. And the best part is that this is the way the world is going now. Your personal projects and your professional career are now things that mutually reinforce each other. For me, helping my dad's car business helped me get a job at Tesla, and working for startups for free got me the foot in the door in my tech career. My book shows hiring managers that I'm a good storyteller with a skill that's increasing in demand, and my career gives me more authority to speak to a publisher or an investor for my passion project Cartel, which I'm now going to tell you about, which is going to help you out today. So Cartel is basically a more dynamic kind of resume that keeps you grounded as you juggle various different personal, professional, creative experiences and identities in this opportunity-filled world that we're in. And it does this by bringing together and presenting all the different sides of you into this cohesive story, so you can more clearly express your unique value and gain opportunities you deserve. So we call it All of You, All in One Place, and it showcases not only your work experiences and qualifications, but also your personal projects and links to all your different social media profiles, like maybe your website, portfolio, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube channel if you're a content creator, basically anywhere that people can find you and what you have to offer. So going further than a resume, your Cartel profile becomes your personal shop, where you can also display your products and services you have to offer, whether that's some creative skill or painting or jewelry, consulting, an hour of your time, book you as a DJ, maybe like a room booking if you also work an event, maybe you have a course or a book, maybe you sell vintage clothes. Whatever that is, you place it in your profile, and then you've consolidated your personal, professional sides together in this beautiful glass morphic design that simplifies your multifaceted identity, that highlights your experiences, what you have to offer. That's why we call it the most beautiful and efficient way to present yourself online. And then you display that, and this is the most important bit, in the bio section of your Instagram or TikTok, whatever social media you use. So your professional expertise is more discoverable in our more modern, creative, social dynamic we have now. So you can actually leverage your career experiences as well as all your extracurricular pursuits to basically help you attract either better career experiences or gain those more entrepreneurial opportunities that you're looking for. Because for me, I don't want to be a product manager forever. That's not my purpose. That's just how I make a living. That's why I wrote the product innovation process to sell it to companies so they can make products without me while I'm not there. What I'd rather do is, I just want to write stories. I want to write beautiful stories about the mystery of this life and the wonders of our existence in a way that unifies every religious narrative. I like to uncover these lesser known similarities of like older wisdom to help people see that the Egyptians to the Indians to the Persians, Jews, Christians and Muslims and so on, that they're all saying the same thing. I think that if people were more aware of that, then it would solve a lot of conflict, especially what we have now. So like my personal fantasy dream is to be a New York Times bestseller. But to do that, it costs money, right? I need an agent, an editor, a publicist, a book designer, a roof over my head to write under, and maybe some nice wine. That always helps. I got to get someone to film me, to make content and think about that. This kind gentleman in the audience is getting 50 quid after this, so thanks. But you get my point. This applies to anyone, whether you want to get published, find customers for what a business you've made, or mess up that interview at the European Space Agency like me. You ideally need to have some achievements and experiences for credibility. You have to know how to present yourself when you're networking and tell your story in all kinds of different contexts. Not only articulate your ideas and products, but also why people should specifically work with you. But the main problem is knowing when to start or where to start. So with that in mind, I'm going to leave you with a starter pack in this little handout you have. You have a free membership to Cartel for 3 years, because I know in 3 years' time you'll have benefited from it so much you can afford to pay for it. The second is a summary of my book, which is actually a 2-page summary of all metaphysics, so all religion, philosophy, and spirituality. So you don't have to spend years reading and searching and making sense of it all like I did. And by the way, the benefit of having clarity on this kind of knowledge is that it connects you to the beauty of yourself and existence, and it helps you figure out what you find meaningful. And to help you actually action this wisdom, I've put a Q&A section in the end, which is what I call the purpose guide that you can write in, like a template, where you can make a vision and plan for the next 3 years of your life. And then once you've done that, there's a link to sign up to a platform called Morgis, which Cartel has partnered with. The Morgis is a platform I'll meet you on, where I will connect you with a mentor that has the exact background you need to get you to where you want to be. And by the way, I've got a copy of my product process here, which is basically a product management degree in a booklet. If you try to sell or copy it, I will run you over with a Tesla. I'm giving you the gold here for free. Please don't let this go to waste. If someone gave me this years ago, then I would have saved years of my life. And look, I've sacrificed a lot to figure this stuff out, like social relationships, girlfriends. It's been tough to figure this all out, but I always knew that it was worth it. And that's my path, because once it's done, I can benefit from this for the rest of my life. And now, so can you. So that's enough of that.